Good morning. Happy Father's Day for all of you that are fathers and for all of you that have fathers, which should be everybody. Happy Father's Day. Last week we spoke, for those of you that were here with us, we spoke and we looked at the passage right before the strange and interesting passage that we just read to this morning. And we talked about how Jesus is saying, hey, look, now it's time for us to practice. It's time for us to go out and do and live out the things that we've been learning about, that we've been talking about, and be the disciples that Jesus wants us to be. Okay? And last week I asked for all of us to really spend this week in prayer, really asking God how it is that we're supposed to go, where are we supposed to go, and really ask God to empower us and to give us the necessary tools and the means that we need to go out and reach people. And I asked for all of us to spend some time this week praying about that. And I think the passage that we see this morning is fitting because it's a challenge for us as we prepare ourselves to go out, as we prepare ourselves to live as disciples, as the way that Jesus wants us to live. It's a challenge for us to think about the commitment that it's actually going to take. Okay? The cost of what God is calling us to bear. This past week I was driving on my way to church and I have the radio on. I listen to the radio in the car. And I was listening to 91.9. And there was this one pastor, I don't know his name, it was in the middle of the thing, it was a talk show, and it was early in the morning, and he's describing his understanding of who God is, okay, and what God is like for him. And this is what he says. He says, God is like a faithful dog. And he goes on to describe this, and he says, God is like a faithful dog because when you have a pet dog, it doesn't matter if you yelled at this dog or if you were mean to this dog. If you're away for a long time and you come home, this dog is happy to see you. Right? So as soon as you walk into the door, this dog is jumping up and down. It doesn't matter how long you were gone for, if you were gone for a month, if you're gone for 6 months. As long as you come home, this dog is happy to see you, and so he's jumping up and down. And so this pastor goes on to say that God is like a household dog. It doesn't matter how long you're gone, as long as you come back, Jesus is going to be happy to see you. He's going to be jumping up and down. He's going to lick your face, and that's how it's going to be. And I'm listening to this, and I'm hearing this on the radio, and I'm like, oh my goodness. Is this, what is God thinking? When our society, people in our society, when we're thinking about who God is, we think of Him more of a household pet than we do as a king and a God. And I think it speaks directly into how we understand our call and the commitment that we have as disciples of Jesus. Because you know what? The thing is, being a disciple and practicing, and we talked about this last week, it's dangerous. It's not easy. It's not safe. It's actually quite bad for our health, okay? And the way that I'll show you this is every single person in the Bible that has an example of doing what Jesus tells them to do died a horrible death, okay? That includes Jesus, that includes most of the apostles, Peter, Paul, all of these people, when they actually did what Jesus asked them to do, they died a horrible death. Peter died upside down on a cross. You know why he died upside down on a cross? Because he felt that the way that Jesus died, right side up, hanging this way, he said he wasn't worthy to die the way that Christ died, and so he asked his executioners if he could die upside down on the cross. Okay? Other people were beheaded, other people were tortured, and the thing is, when we see in the Bible, when Jesus says, hey, if you go out and do what I asked you to do, the ending for most of these people is not a very fun thing. And that's something that we need to keep in mind, because even as we read the story this morning, we see that John the Baptist, he's the last coming prophet up into our scriptures before Christ comes. Even John the Baptist, he doesn't have a very pretty end to his life. And this morning, as we gear ourselves getting ready to go out, Jesus is saying, look, I'm asking you to go out, but right now what we're saying is, hey, let's make sure we understand what the cost is. Let's make sure, because look, if you truly are faithful to what Jesus is calling, then most people in the Bible, if you really want to be like me, like Jesus, and die on the cross, the ending is going to be very similar. So this morning, I want to take a look at that. I want to take a look at what it means to die for the gospel and why Jesus calls us to die, and how it is that people like Jesus, people like Paul, people like Peter and the apostles, and John the Baptist, how it is that they're able to die and go through the persecution. How it is that they're able to be faithful during these times of difficulty. Okay, so the term that we're going to use and talk about is martyr, or what does it mean to be a martyr, right? It's to die for the gospel. It's to give up your life for something that you believe in. And so this morning I want to look at a couple characteristics of what it means to be a martyr. And this is something that I read recently that was preached by a pastor named Edward Marquardt. And I just want to highlight a few things that he said, because I think it's very important and pertinent for us to understand of what it means to be a martyr. Okay, so the first thing that we need to understand about what it means to be a martyr and a characteristic of martyr is that martyrs are persecuted, okay? Martyrs are killed for their faith, not because of what they believe in, but because of how they express what they believe, okay? It's not about their convictions or what their thoughts are or what they believe to be true, but they become martyrs, and the characteristic of a martyr is because they express what they believe. Look with me in Mark 6, 17, 19, okay? It's talking about this story of John the Baptist and King Herod, who was in that region of Galilee at the time. And the story is that Herod, he's a very selfish man if you read through the scriptures, and he does whatever he wants, and a very immoral family, okay? And I'll explain to you why. He marries a woman called Herodias, okay? Who was actually his brother Philip, so Herod's brother Philip's wife. Okay, so he marries his own brother's wife, and the children that he has, he has many wives, and as you can imagine, all these things, but they're intermarrying and all these different things. One of the children that he has, her name is Salome, and she's actually the girl that dances for Herod and the dinner guests. Okay, now I want to tell you a little bit about this, because when John the Baptist is looking at King Herod and he's saying, hey look, what you're doing is not right, it's not just a small thing. It's not something that we can say, oh, culturally many people had many wives, so it's okay, or incest wasn't that big of a deal back in the day, so it's not that, a big thing. You need to understand what King Herod was doing was really disgusting if you think about it. Okay? And it's really a big deal because King Herod, he is the overseer of that region. He has ultimate authority of that region. And so what John the Baptist is saying in verse 18 is that he goes up to Herod and he says, hey, King, it's not right for you to take your brother's wife. And he speaks out against the king of the area. And so you see, when John the Baptist actually dies, we see that it's not Herod himself that murders him, right? It's Herodias, his wife, his brother Philip's wife, that actually has a grudge and takes out this long plan. But you see that it's not because of what he believed in, right? Anybody can think that what Herod is doing, we can all sit here and think, oh, what he's doing is wrong. But a martyr is characterized not just by what we believe in, but how we express it, about when we express it. Let me give you a more modern day example. Several years ago, when I was still, when I was in Chicago with my youth group, things that are politically correct were a lot less strict like 10 years ago, right? You could say a whole lot more things and it wouldn't be such an offense back in the day, okay? And so one of the things that used to be really popular in my youth group were, for some reason, racist jokes. And it didn't have to do with African American jokes. It ranges from everything, from Koreans to Filipinos to Chinese to black people to Jewish people. I mean, there were just jokes all over the place. It was even to the point where some of our college students and our chaperones and different people would say, oh yeah, you think that's a good one? Here, let me tell you another one, okay? I mean, it was really bad. My youth pastor once said this as he was addressing this issue of making these racist jokes, and he said, hey, well, he's preaching to everyone, but I heard him talking to me while he was preaching. He says, it's not about what you believe if you keep it to yourself. It's about when you say and express what you believe that makes a difference. And it really is the case. All of us, we all believe what is right and what is wrong. And when you see it in the society, you see so many things that's right and what's wrong. You see so many things that are happening in the world, and you're like, oh, I don't know about that. I don't like that. I think that's wrong. But the characteristic of a martyr is not just believing it, it's actually expressing it. John the Baptist does that. He sees something where he feels in his gut, wait, that's not right. What Herod is doing, no matter if he's the king, if he's the most powerful person in this region, what you are doing is not right, and he has a conviction. But what characterizes him and what makes him different from all of us is that he expresses his beliefs. He voices his concern. I tried that once. A group of us, we were on a ski trip, and all of a sudden it was like a racist joke battle came up. It was like the Yo Mama joke battles, okay? People going back and forth telling these jokes, and they're like, ooh, you know, they you know, whatever, they made a better joke than the other person and all these things. And I was sitting and in the back of the van, and I said, hey guys, let's not do that. And you should have heard it. We're in a van of youth group students, okay, and we're driving to go skiing, and everyone's really having a good time. And this is back then when we still didn't have iPods. We had Walkmans and little, you know, CD players and things like that. So everyone's talking, and as soon as I said, hey guys, that's offensive, let's not say that, it was like, all of a sudden you could hear crickets. And everybody stopped, and they turned around and looked at me. They're like, what did you just say? It's not about what we believe, it's about how we express it. John the Baptist was not afraid to express his beliefs. But you know, it's easier said than done, isn't it? And I think that's why it's the first characteristic. Many of us know what's right and what's wrong. But when we actually get to the place to express it, that's what makes a follower of Jesus and somebody who's afraid of confrontation. Which leads us to the second point, that location makes all the difference. Okay? Look, when John the Baptist sees what's going on with King Herod, he could go around wherever King Herod is not there, and he could be preaching in the churches and the synagogues. John the Baptist had a large following, remember? He would baptize hundreds of, thousands of people. He would come and people would be listening to him. He could be very, very far away from King Herod, knowing that King Herod would be unhappy if I said something, right? He could be preaching to the people, and he could say whatever he wants to the people, okay? Now, John the Baptist did also teach to the people, hey, look, what he's doing is wrong. When he went to address, and people came up and said, hey, wait, is this what he's doing? The examples that is that correct? No, he corrected them, he taught them. He's like, no, that's not right. But he not only said it in a place where he knew he was safe, where he was far away, but he said it in the face of the king. Okay? Location makes all the difference. What does that mean for us? Many of us, when we're inside of a church, the way that we are and who we are in God is very different than when we're outside of the church. For some reason, when we walk into the sanctuary, we become really, really holy people. Last night we had a praise night for the college students and the young adults. When we worship God inside the walls of the church, people are jumping up and down, they do crazy things, they lift their hands, they worship God, they say, Lord Jesus, I love you. But guess what happens when we go to our workplaces, to our schools, to outside in our cars? All of a sudden, location makes all the difference. And our convictions, our desires, our thoughts, they all fizz away. And what Jesus is saying is very simple. Look, a characteristic of a martyr is not only what they're willing to express, but where and when they're willing to express what they believe. If we're only a church Christian, okay, if we can only pray in the church or with our families or with other people that we know that won't think that we're crazy when we pray before we eat, or when we tell them, hey, Saturday morning I wake up really early to go pray when everyone else is playing golf or sleeping in, or Sunday morning I wake up early morning to come to worship God. If the only people that we can talk to about these things are our church friends and our church communities, or people that don't think they're going to be weird, then brothers and sisters, we're not expressing our true beliefs and our callings. Location makes all the difference, where and when. It's the same for me, okay, as I preach. I love to preach and I love to proclaim. Remember I told you I came back from Bangladesh? I'm preaching to a group of people that are there, and 90% of the 100 people crowd that were there that were Muslim. Okay? Of the 90% that were there that are Muslim, 40 of them had never heard the gospel before. 40 of them were actually kind of hostile to the gospel message. Okay? Can you imagine how timid and what my thinking is. You know, do you think, you know, I move around a lot, right? And this is for me to express my emotions, my whatever, my convictions. I'm saying is these things. I'm trying to communicate with my hands. When I'm there preaching and with these people and I know that are kind of hostile the whole time, I'm just standing